Sally, thanks for joining us on this episode. Why should people listen to you to the very end of this episode?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. So I'm Sally. I'm the founder of Your First Corporate Job. And my mission is to help individual contributors play, learn, and navigate the corporate game. I've worked with hundreds of college students, recent grads, who have just struggled in the corporate job. They worked hard in school, and then when they went to the corporate job, they stumbled. They stumbled because they thought that their work would speak for itself. And so what I want to do is share what I've learned, as well as what I've curated from people around me and people who are way smarter and much more better than I am at some of this stuff, and share it back with you so that you don't make the same mistakes that we did. And that's the goal. Tangible, practical game plans that just help you stand out in your first corporate job.
Awesome. Thank you so much. You guys heard it. The person you just listened to now, or probably you're looking at right now, her name is Sally Ivester. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Got it. Ivester. Yep.
Ivester. Okay, so she has basically told us a whole lot about herself. That is from so she's going to be telling us how she made it out from the trenches, so the corporate world, narrating to us first-hand experiences, and basically giving us the exact tips or tricks that young professionals will be able to use to get ahead in their careers. So she's the founder of Your First Corporate Job. She's become a go-to resource for navigating the often daunting world of corporate life. With her years of experience in corporate, Sally has the first-hand knowledge of the challenges new graduates face. She's here to share practical advice and insider tips to help you not just to survive, but to thrive in your first job. And thank you so much for joining us here, Sally, which now goes into my very first question. You are a child of an immigrant, and I want you to take us to the beginning of things. You being a child of an immigrant, you making it into Ivy League, you now making it into Google. What was life like to this point where you now felt, okay, I think I've learned so much in corporate, and these are the things that I've faced growing up, and this is how I can package and articulate all of these experiences into one awesome business that can help first-time graduates or first-time job seekers.
Yeah. You know what's so interesting, Mahmood, is the stuff that I'm talking about, it applies to everyone, right? Because it applies to anyone who's starting their first job or corporate job or however you want to be thinking about it, but it's the first, right? Because I think it's it's like your first kiss or your first boyfriend, whatever. You never forget a first. You never quite know exactly how to handle a first. And I think for my experience, especially in the corporate world, is I went into it thinking, oh, I know, I just need to work hard and my work will speak for itself. But when you're 5 years in, 10 years in, that type of thinking is BS, right? It doesn't matter how hard you work, or it doesn't matter if you did a great job. If you don't talk about your work, if you don't talk about your work to people who are more senior, then that limits you. It limits you from being top of mind for your manager, which then decreases the chances that you're going to get more opportunities, which then decreases the chances of a faster promotion and better title and all those types of things. And it becomes this ripple effect. So I would say when you're in college, that is probably the last time when you're going to have set rules of what it takes to succeed, right? You need to have at least a C in order to get to the next level or whatever that would be. In the corporate job, what are the rules? Right? It really runs the gambit, and there's not a ton of rules, but there are some basics that you need to know. And when you learn them early on in your career, then that just helps you accelerate a lot faster. So you can definitely do it through trial and error. I think a lot of people do things trial and error. But the question becomes, do you want to do it trial and error, or do you sort of want to have the playbook of what you need to do? And then, of course, you're going to mess up. Of course, you're going to have mistakes. But at least you have a basic understanding of what the rules are before you go into something, so that then you can make the mistakes that you want to make. So that's really what it comes down to, Mahmood, is how do we just shine a light onto some of the practical things that you have to do? And some of those practical things, I would say, would be one, how do you present yourself? This is the most easy one, right? Like, how do you show up? But I think it's the one that most people will overlook. I call it Eeyore, but no one wants an Eeyore on their team, right? Someone who has a negative personality, who always complains, who gossips about you or anything like that. No one wants that. But it's easy for us to lean into it because we think we could be funny or we could be cheeky or whatever that would be. And those are types of things of check yourself, right, in terms of how you present yourself. And then also it shows up in terms of, are you early? Are you on time? Like, are you someone who comes with problems or do you come with solutions? All of these things, by the way, Mahmood, what I'm about to talk about are things that you are in control of. You can't control who your manager is. You can't control your project, but you can control what you do about those types of things. And I want to put your listeners in the power seat so that they don't feel like their power is taken away, but that they have the power to really control what they can in the corporate world. And then for the things that they can't, they sort of like let it go. So we talked about like how you present yourself as one of them. The second piece is like, how do you present your work? Right? Like, or how do you even honestly talk about what type of work you want? Those are going to be really impactful too, because not every project is treated the same. And then I would say the third thing is, how do you think about your relationships? Your manager, your coworkers, all of those types of relationships are so critical to land. And then I would say, finally, it becomes your performance review. Now, where I really just, where I really hone in on are for individual contributors. Because I stand by the fact that like the game changes when you're an individual contributor, and then the game changes when you're a manager, and then the game changes when you're like much more senior and an executive. And so it's all about, how do you nail this first game so that you can qualify for the next game? And that's the piece that I want people to remember.
Okay. Thank you so much, because now like you've opened the Pandora's box for us, like leading into different questions. First, the last thing you said was that there are different it's like you've categorized the life cycle of a typical employee. What you are leaning into is where people are just coming into the job market, the exact things that they need to do. So that is your own audience. So if you're a manager, this conversation might not be for you, but obviously you learn a thing or two. And you talked about three main things: how you present yourself, how you present your work, and the performance review. Those three things. Now,
and your relationship, I would say.
And the relationship. Okay. Thanks for chiming that in. What I want, there is a part, because I'm trying to go back to the young me of 2017 when I just got in. I'm not from like the poshest of backgrounds. I was just like smart enough to get a job that everybody couldn't get. And it showed, because of the kind of people that I worked with. They went to much more expensive schools and things like that. And I felt, okay, hard work got me here, and I just need to do the same thing I've been doing in school, dig deep and deliver. But what I noticed was that even people who weren't even as hardworking as I was, they appeared to be the chosen one, the anointed ones. So later in life, that was like three or 4 years, that's when I knew the concept of being able to like beat your own gong, walk as loudly as possible. How are we going to educate our audience today about the idea of you being your own work's ambassador, you being able to be your own publicist within an organization, so that you can move as fast as possible within the corporate ladder?
Yeah, I think you hit, Mahmood, on a totally important point, which is you need to work loudly, right? And the reason that you need to work loudly is because the corporate job is a game, and you can either play this game on easy mode, or you can play this game on hard mode. And you know, a through line in what it means to play it on easy mode is to work loudly, which is exactly what you're talking about, that you learn later on in life, which is talking about your work and making sure others see it. It is one of those things that is so hard to do, is to talk about yourself and to talk about your work and to also do it in a way where it doesn't feel cringy, right? Where you go, oh, am I showing off? What are people going to say? Like, this makes me feel like I'm trying to suck up or be the teacher's pet. Like, we all have those thoughts, right? Like, we have those thoughts run through us all the time. Yeah. But if you don't talk about your work, no one else will know about your work, because at the end of the day, you are no one else's first priority but yourself. You can have the best boss on earth, but your boss's priority is them. And for you to be top of mind for your boss so that you can get the better opportunities, so that your name comes up in performance reviews and you can get a good rating, you need to talk about your work. And that's just full stop. You have to do that. Now, there are different ways you can tactfully talk about your work. And there are ways that you can even show your work and let your work speak for itself. But you have to put yourself out there, because if you keep yourself in sort of this silo, then you're always going to be stuck in that silo and you won't be able to grow fast. So I think, Mahmoud, regardless of background, regardless if you went to college at all, regardless if you went to an Ivy League or whatever that would be, you have to work loudly, because that's going to be the number one thing that just gets you top of mind awareness for all the people that you work with. And that top of mind awareness is going to lead you to even more opportunities.
All right. So you need to be able to work loudly, and you need to be able to, you basically said that it's a game. Now, are there few things in terms of tacticals, because all of this is just a strategy, right? This conversation is a strategy. Executables, exact things that one can do, maybe 1, 2, 3, or even 5 of them that you can do within your work environment that makes you a standout employee within your team or your company. Are there things that you can do as a young employee?
Yeah, I call it the pitch framework. I think that's a great question, Mahmoud. What are the 5 things that you can do immediately, within the first, I would say, 30 days? And I think it comes down to how do you present with confidence, right? And we can talk tactically of what does it mean to present with confidence. The second thing is, how do you increase your impact? The third thing would be, is how do you take feedback? We haven't even talked about feedback, Mahmoud, but that's a totally important piece, right? Because feedback shows off, are you manageable? Are you coachable? The fourth one is, how do you collaborate with your coworkers? And then the fifth one is, all hail your manager. So I'll say that again. That's the pitch framework. And I would say it's present with confidence, increase your impact, take feedback, collaborate with coworkers, and all hail your manager. Those are 5 things I would ask for anyone to do within the first 30 days. And when we talk about presenting with confidence, it's about how do you show up, right? As an example, Mahmoud, when you go into a meeting, let's say you even have a chat with your wife and you just talk. Sometimes the other person can zone out because they have no idea what do you want from them, right? Do you want me to listen? Do you want me to provide an opinion? Do you want me to decide? How do we make that clear? As you get more senior, you make that super clear because you want to maximize people's time. And as someone junior, the number one thing that you can do to show off how you could be more senior is say, Mahmoud, I have a 20-minute presentation for you and I need to get your opinion. Right? Just saying that point blank just helps trigger in your mind, okay, what do I need to then give to Sally if she's presenting to me? The second thing I would say is you need to increase your impact. Impact is the most important word of the corporate job, because impact is all about what are you driving for the company? What are you driving for these projects? And as someone who is junior, your project might be something small. An example I use a lot is Apple probably has a key objective out there that says we want to be a best-in-class hardware company. As someone who's junior, you might be creating a super small influencer campaign. And your project might be okay, we want to do work with Mahmoud, who is a podcast interviewer. But if you tie it to that larger objective, I am interviewing Mahmoud, or I am doing an influencer campaign so that I can help Apple be a best-in-class hardware company, that immediately signals how you are trying to contribute to the larger company goal, which I think is so critical. It's all about how you tie back into it, and that's how you increase impact. The third part I would say when it comes to take feedback is are you someone who's triggered by feedback, right? If you're a junior, we tend to associate feedback with something negative. Oh, I did something wrong and that's bad. But I think the biggest shift that you make as you get older is you realize that feedback, it just comes, and it's not good, it's not bad. But if someone's taking time to invest in you, then that means, and to give you feedback, then that is them trying to help you get better. So even if they tell you these are the things that you did wrong, they're trying to tell you right there and then, hey, I've signaled to you that I'm going to invest 20 minutes to tell you 5 things that you can do better, right? And that's the type of stuff that we almost have to gaslight ourselves with, right? Like feedback is good. We have to keep on reminding ourselves that. The fourth thing is your coworkers. I call it collaborate with coworkers. And at the end of the day, look, your coworkers can either be people you're jealous of, or they can be people who you see as worthy rivals, and they push you to be better. Because at the end of the day, these are people who are probably going to be fighting with you for that same performance rating, but they're also going to be people who are going to give you a hand, right? And especially people who have been there a little bit longer than you, who can give you past resources, like past decks, or can give you advice on how to manage your manager or anything like that. And this is all about how do you just steal pride and not start from bottom, but like start with a little bit of a leg up so you understand, hey, this is how my manager thinks, or hey, this is a good example of what a slide deck looks like that they like. So I don't have to like spend hours creating something that they're going to end up hating.
Yeah.
And then the last piece, which I think is so important, which is why I call it all hail your manager, is your manager is the most important person for you in a corporate environment. They are the ones who write your performance reviews. They dictate how much money you make. They also decide what projects you work on. And I think the biggest shift that people need to make is your manager is not there to be your best friend. Your manager is there to deliver the best output for the company. And so then it becomes, how do you make it less me? I want a promotion. I want the best project. I want you to do all these things. And it's about how you are helping your manager deliver the output that they need to deliver for the company. So I would say, Mahmood, like those are some of the practical ways I would break down what people need to do in the first 30 days. And it comes down to, again, the pitch framework. Present with confidence, increase your impact, take feedback, collaborate with your coworkers, and all hail your manager.
You guys, you heard it. Like the way she articulated it, it's the pitch framework. The way she articulated it, it's something that is quite clear that when I started as a young executive, that I didn't do like about 3 of those things. Obviously, I'm much more experienced now. I work well with my manager, but I would want to permit you if you can take it a step further. Because you talked about working with employees, your co-employees, and also hailing your manager. But if an employee, a new recruit, or you come into a team and you find yourself within a toxic environment, how do you get yourself out of that? 1, 2. Aside your manager, is it also smart for a young executive to go into an organization and try to be closer or have a working relationship with other managers within your team, or other managers in a different team, or even their own, or even your manager's manager, trying to have a working relationship with them, quote and unquote, trying to make them your sponsor within the organization? Is this something that at an early stage employee you are allowed to do and not look like you are trying just to be the teacher's pet, as you rightly put it?
Yeah, those are 2 great questions, Mahmood. So I'm going to take them one at a time.
Yeah.
It sounds like the first question is, what do you do if you're in a toxic environment and like you have a toxic coworker? And I think like in those particular instances, it really comes down to like, 1, is it a toxic environment? And I hate to start off this way, but I think you have to remember is there a difference between how you are interpreting the situation versus like what are the facts of the situation? And I think that's like really important to know. And there are many instances where it is toxic, but I just want to make sure that we're focusing on the facts. And if those are the facts, then a key part of it sort of becomes, how do you cover your butt? I call it CYA, right? You can imagine what it stands for, but it comes down to, if we're in a toxic environment, that signals to me it's a fight or flight. It signals to me that there could be an instance where I might get thrown under the bus. I might be taken advantage of. The things that I want to get done may not be exactly what they want to get done. So how do I make sure that we are keeping this kosher? And the way that I would think about it is, how do you cover your butt by either documenting conversations, by either highlighting, hey, this is what we agreed to, putting it in writing, right? Sending emails, recaps, all of these different tactics, and making sure your manager is CC'd on that kind of stuff. And the other component I would say, in addition to covering your butt, is also this idea of like managing up to your manager. Most managers that I know, and Mahmoud, I would love to hear your perspective, they don't like to be caught off guard. They want to know, right? Like they would rather hear it from you than someone else. And I think if you are in a toxic environment, state in facts why it's a toxic environment, what you're doing about it, and highlight that to your manager because they can also step in. But the reason that I say it this way is because you want to avoid emotions. You want to avoid throwing people under the bus because that's not a good look for you. Right? If they're being toxic, you want them to look bad. You don't want you to be the one, oh, look at Sally creating drama out of nowhere. You never want that to be your brand or your personal brand. So the more you keep it in facts, the more you document it in facts, the more you manage up to your manager, the more likely you will be able to come out of this situation like with no burns. So I would say that's like one particular thing. The second thing I would say, just in terms of like having relationships, working relationships with people outside of your just direct manager line, is you got to have them. So I say, yes, have them. Now, the way to have them is, how do you know them as a person? Right? As an example, one tactic that I have when it comes to just working better with my manager's peers or people more high up is I make it a point to know who they are, right? Like, what do they care about? Do they like dad jokes? Are they people who are avid readers? These are small details, and many people might say, oh, you don't need to know them. But if you make it only about the work, it makes it really hard for you to not seem like someone who's sucking up. If you make it not about the work, then you honestly start caring about the other person, and then you can have more natural conversations. And when you have more natural conversations, that gives you opportunities to also drop in little things of, hey, I'm working on this, or just wanted to get your perspective on this, or whatever that would be. So those are like little ways that I would say, as someone who is 22, 24, 25, just starting their career, those are things that you can easily execute. And those are honestly pretty tangible too. Now, one thing I'll leave you with, Mahmoud, just because I know you didn't ask it, but when you do see these people who are either much more senior than you or your manager's peers, you got to treat it as an opportunity to have like your three things: 2 work things and potentially 1 like personal thing that you want to update them on. I stole this from a realtor, right? Like a realtor once told me, I have to treat parent-teacher conferences as my Super Bowl, right? Or like my big Olympics moment or something. And if I go to, as a realtor, if I go to like a parent-teacher conference and I meet all these other parents and I can't tell them about 2 houses that I'm showing right now in an off-market opportunity, that's a wasted opportunity for me to showcase why I'm the best realtor and why you should work with me if you ever want to sell your house later down the line. And that type of thinking also applies to just like the corporate world, right? If I'm talking to my manager's manager, and we got 20 seconds because we're both walking to the restroom together, I want to be able to either tell them something fun about something that I know that they like, and 2 quick work things, because it's a great way for me to get exposure, because those people are so booked up. I would never regularly get a meeting with them, but if I could utilize these small moments, that's the best way for me to just act natural and also be someone that stays top of mind for them.
The thing is that the way you're delivering all of this is the kind of things that you're talking about, especially those 3 ways in which one personal thing and 2 work things. These are tactics that it's not just limited to young people. It's just not limited. Even if you are in the boardroom and you want to be the global CEO or something, these are things that you can use. So these ideas are actually very scalable. And so thank you so much, Sally. And please, if you've made it this far, this will be the right time for you to like drop a comment for whatever questions that you have. You might want to drop it in the comments. Probably when Sally gets a hang of the video, she can respond to those comments in a good time. And also please try to like and share. So I have one more important question, and a much more funny question. So the question will be, so what's at the, you've been able to work with so many young professionals in the last couple of years? What are the elements that you've noticed is consistently missing amongst all of these professionals that you've actually helped, coached, or mentored them to get their first job, or mentored them to retain their first job? So what are those things that you've noticed, like three characteristics that you've noticed has been consistent amongst them, that if a listener is listening to it today, they might be able to pick one and they'll be able to address it moving forward?
Yeah, that's a great question. The first one I would say is, and this is, by the way, this is just general, right? Like, there are always going to be unique cases and it may not apply to you and all of that. I feel like I have to say that disclaimer. I think people who are starting out, they have a very selfish mentality. And when I say selfish, I just mean, I want this. I want the promotion. I want to work on the sexy project. I want the opportunity to do XYZ thing. And the corporate world doesn't work in terms of I want. We need to twist that thinking into, I want to help the company do X thing. And by helping the company do X thing, that helps me accomplish my goal. So I would say, like, we have to change that type of thinking, because the more you push your own narrative, the more you push your own game, the less you're going to be successful. But if you can tweak it and make it about the company and how you're helping the company, your chances are going to increase much more. I'd say the second thing is people don't talk about their work enough. That's so critical, right? You just have to work loudly, because you are no one else's first priority except for yourself. And if you don't talk about your work, as someone who's new, you're not in the right meetings with senior leadership to always be talked about. So you don't even have the opportunity to be talked about. And so I need you, for anyone listening, and if you're new, you got to talk about your work. That's going to be the most important thing. If you go to my website, yourfirstcorporatejob.com, you can probably find different resources that I have. I have a prioritization tracker, where it's a really simple tracker. It's a tricks or a spreadsheet. And honestly, it just showcases your projects. But just the natural, simple act of showcasing your projects and documenting it and making sure that you review it every week, it's a great way to keep your projects top of mind and to remind your manager how much impact you're making. And then the third thing I would say is, there is a huge component to being manageable. If people think that you are someone who doesn't take feedback well. If you gave me feedback, Mahmood, and you said, Sally, that was a really crap interview, you could have done XYZ way better. And I said, screw you, Mahmood. Like, what do you know? Like, and I act defensive, you're never going to have me back, right? It's not going to be the case. And so if you are someone who is defensive, not only does that hurt you in that initial interaction with your manager, but that starts to build a negative brand around you. And no one's going to want to work with you, right? No new team manager or new team or new manager is going to want to hire you, because you're someone who's seen as not coachable. So I would say, like, those are the top three things that you have to work on. The first one is, make it about the company, not about yourself. And then you can, ironically, still get your goals like pushed through. I think the second piece is you got to work loudly. And I think the third piece is you have to be able to take feedback.
Wow. You talked about, thank you so much for those three things. You talked about your company right now, and the reality is that despite the fact I've gone to your company's website, I looked at what you do. I think you'll be the best advocate to tell the people what you do and how you'll be able to help them, and also how they'll be able to get in contact with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So you can reach me at yourfirstcorporatejob.com. And what I do is I just help ambitious individual contributors navigate, play, and learn the corporate game. That's full stop what it comes down to. I do it in tangible, bite-sized pieces, and you can check out my new Maven cohort, which launches later in September, where it's a 4-week cohort, and I'm going to walk you through, I would say, 4 different parts that you need to nail. And that will help you quickly understand, why is it so important to like work hard in your first job? And then the second piece is like, what can you do about it? I find, Mahmood, that's the hardest part. Is you can tell me, high level, oh, work smarter, Sally. But what the heck is working smarter? Like, literally, what am I supposed to do? And I find that for a lot of people, because I've worked with hundreds of people who are either college students or people who are recent grads, they need tactical tips, right? Like, what's a one-on-one agenda, right? Or how do I make sure my manager knows I'm smart? Like, all these little things, that's what's going to add up, and they build up and they make a great brand for you. And that's hopefully what people will take away from my website, my course, and my social.
thank you so much. You guys have a contact now. Um, you just reach out to our or go to our website. I saw some free resources that can help you as well. When I went to our website, you might want to go in there and try to test those free tools, and also reach out to. Probably you can be part of the next cohort. Just one very just a much more relaxed question. So, what's like your most unpopular opinion within the job search or recruitment industry? What's like? Just give me your take on.
Yeah. I think the most unpopular opinion I have, at least for right now, is your manager is not your friend, right? Your manager can be like someone that you like. Your manager can be someone that you count on, but your manager is not meant to be your friend who you gossip to, who you share everything with. I think people want to see their manager as like sort of being besties with them and all of that, but you have to know your role because your manager knows their role, and you should too.
All right. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. You just listened to Sally Ivester. She's a Google employee, and also I didn't know that. She's a Google employee and also the founder of Your First Job. So you guys should reach out to her, and thank you so much for when she told you guys that you should wait to the end of the episode, that you are going to get the exact strategies and the exact executables for you to move your career forward. She wasn't lying, and she actually brought her A game on this one. So thank you so much, Sally, and thank everyone for joining. I remain your host, Mahmoud Olabikasha, on this episode of How I Did It podcast. Thank you so much. Until the next one, it will be peace.
Yay.